Here in Las Vegas, we have the best chefs in the world. We have the freshest food shipped in every morning for the chefs to choose from. We have some of the best nutritionists in the country here at the NFL, the UFC, the NHL, the WNBA. We provided this better food to them. We could reduce obesity. We could reduce long-term health problems and reduce some medical bills for our community. We could reduce diabetes. We could improve academic performance, athletic performance, reduce mood disorders, reduce suicide, reduce school violence, teacher assaults, and school shootings. We have the opportunity to provide the most delicious, most nutritious meals in the country to the kids in our schools, but we choose not to. Turns out all this can be done without raising a single dollar in taxes.
Sometimes it's not about profit. I think if you go to lower tier economy type chicken, beef, what the protein is more important than actually where it's coming from.
And the new science that has been coming out, they are saying that a lot of this inflammation is related to impaired energy utilization by the brain, and that if you improve the diet, you can improve your insulin tolerance and your glucose tolerance. So I believe they have clinical data as well. So I'm waiting for the big study to come out on that. Hi, welcome to the Dr. Nagy Show. I'm Dr. Ori Nagy, running for U.S. Congress in Nevada's 3rd Congressional District. Today I have with me Justin Frieshtat, and he's here to talk to us today about the laws that we need to pass in Washington to enable a freer flow of capital in our economy, to support small business owners. And so thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So tell me about this company that you started, Heartland Foods.
So my dad actually founded it.
Okay.
I was a kid working in the warehouse at that point. So it was the kind of thing, working for your dad, doing everything. But yeah, he did an asset purchase on a company that was basically going bankrupt. And he had just left the blind business. So Next Day Blinds on the East Coast.
Okay.
That was his company. Exited that one.
It's kind of blinds.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So that was back in the 90s, $30 million business, which today would be, probably, I don't know, quarter billion, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats on that.
Yeah. My original mentor was great, learning business from him. So he was more on the operations side as we grew it. And then I did door-to-door sales. It was a door-to-door sales model.
Huh.
Yeah. And
that's tough. You get a lot of slam doors in your face. It kind of builds up a certain kind of a tough character.
You know what? I think everyone should do it, especially when you're young. If you can go survive in the door-to-door world, everything will get a lot easier in life.
My folks made me do that when I was a little kid. We were out there selling Christmas cards.
Yep.
So yeah, but and it was a good experience, right? You learn to be persistent.
That, and I think being in a different home every couple hours, you get to meet so many different types of families, different types of people. You learn a lot about people, and everything in life's a people game.
That is very true. That is very true. It's all about us trying to find ways to help each other to do better. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, it also expands your mind on the world. One neighborhood, you might be in a $100,000 house, and then the next day you're in a $5 million house. So you get to kind of see how big the world is. And I kind of just feel like that's kind of where potential comes from. It's just being exposed to what's possible.
Where did you grow up and get to do that?
Right outside Washington, D.C.
Oh, neat. Oh, wow. So yeah, there's a lot of economic variety around there. I lived out there for many years. And there's numerous different economic disparities. Some of the wealthiest communities in the country, I think, are around Fairfax.
Yep, Fairfax and Loudoun. And that's where I lived for the last 10 years before I moved here.
Nice. Yeah, beautiful out there. And you guys get all 4 seasons.
We do.
Yeah, and out here we've got winter and summer, and the transition for a couple weeks in between.
Yeah, and that's why I moved here. I like this better than the humidity and the winter and the brutal summer too.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be heading out there, so don't talk it down too much.
You will be there.
So you had this experience. Your dad had this company. It was Heartland Foods. What did they do?
So we were direct to consumer,
Uh-huh.
and we were taking all of the best quality proteins that you can get in the high-end restaurants and making that available to the home.
Oh,
So it was a pretty niche service, mostly higher end. But we did have product lines that served, middle, more middle class. But yeah, so it's everything that's in all the nicest restaurants in Vegas. We would flash freeze it, vacuum sealed, so it had a 2-year shelf life.
Uh-huh.
And we had to do that because the business model, there's no margin in food of that quality. So we put it in 6-month increments, and we put it into a freezer in people's garages. So that way we were only delivering once every 6 months, cut down on a lot of the overhead, made it more economical. And then you had a finance or component to the business because everyone was financing their food contracts and appliances. We were selling the appliances too. So we would sell the freezer, grill, cutlery, cookware, all kinds of other things that you could get as add-ons to the food.
Nice. I'm gonna pause right there for a second because we're doing an interesting thing here in Las Vegas. So we recognized that here in Las Vegas, we have the best chefs in the world. We have the freshest food shipped in every morning for the chefs to choose from. We have some of the best nutritionists in the country here at the NFL, the UFC, the NHL, the WNBA. We have the opportunity to provide the most delicious, most nutritious meals in the country to the kids in our schools, but we choose not to. We choose to let,
Mhm.
whatever entities feeding them currently provide foods at a lower standard than we could be offering. But it turns out, if we provided this better food to them, we could reduce obesity, we could reduce long-term health problems and reduce some medical bills for our community. We could uh, uh, reduce diabetes. We could improve academic performance, athletic performance, reduce mood disorders, reduce suicide, reduce school violence, teacher assaults. And so we kind of reasoned that this is all stuff that starts with improving nutrition.
Mhm.
And so we started assembling different people in the community to talk about this. So we started with the school district. We talked with the former president of the school board and the Nevada Association of School Administrators and a current member of the school board. And then we started talking to some of the professors of epidemiology at uh, UNLV and the head of biostatistics at Torrey University and the head of nutrition over at Roseman and the head of public health at UNR, because we wanted them to craft a study so that if we implemented this in 2 years, we could prove that we were actually able to create these outcomes. Then 49 other states in the country would want to copy what we were able to execute on here in Las Vegas. It turns out all this can be done without raising a single dollar in taxes. Right now, all the meals in the school district are paid for by the federal government, $6 a meal. And we provide up to 330,000 meals a day. But that's the number of kids who eat lunch. And some of the kids get breakfast and dinner too. And for some of these kids, that's the only meal they get. They don't get healthy food at home. And so we talked to some of the biggest food producers for the Strip who've agreed to come on board. We have some political figures who have agreed to jump in and assist us in this mission. We talked to the NIH. They agreed to come in and help to provide funding to educate kids about what good nutrition looks like and to maybe bring, celebrities to like, remember when we were kids and you watch the Sesame Street where they bring on some celebrity and they teach you about, oh, this is, the letter A. It said, this is broccoli or whatever nutritious message they're trying to get across to people. And so we put this in front of the nutritionists and the educators. I'm like, how do we implement this in the schools, and what is the better form of nutrition? So right now, we are engaging with nutritionists. We've gotten to speak with head nutritionists over at Roseman and UNLV and the NFL, and the the former head of nutrition for the Golden Knights. And we're trying to get a consensus on what an improvement over the current model of nutrition is for the schools. The idea is that if we do that, here in Las Vegas, we have the fifth biggest school district in the country. And that allows us to create a captive market in which we can provide, it's enough of a market to sustain the development of higher quality foods. So I'd like to see food products where we've sort of swapped out glucose and fructose that have a high glycemic index with allulose, which sort of helps regulate sugar better for people. And it seems to be overall more healthy. And and other innovations of this type in the technology and nutrition right now is just, off the charts. They've learned so much in the last 5 to 10 years about what healthy foods look like and how to properly provide the fuels that our body needs. And, over the last 50, 100 years, the agricultural industry has gotten extraordinarily efficient at both producing the foods and then finding ways to package them that increase the amount that we eat and increase the shelf life. And most of those things aren't healthy for us. And so RFK and company are doing a great job in Washington, finding ways to make our foods more healthy, but they haven't come up with the new set of FDA standards. So we figure if we can come in with a set that's even 10% more effective than what we have now and prove that it's more effective, we can create that kind of business model where everybody in the country is trying to copy what we do. So we've made a lot of progress, and it sounds like you're sort of an expert in this large scale food production.
Yeah, I think with that type of mission, some of it could also be just the things we remove as options. If we get rid of endocrine disrupting dyes and maybe make those choices on macro nutrition, if it's loaded with too much fat and sugar and low protein, maybe that's just not in the equation at all.
Just so these are the kinds of changes that we're trying to implement. So we've reached out to some of the best nutritionists in the country and one of them has plugged us into the network they have in San Francisco. And so I think it's going to take us though several more months before we can, hammer down on what the optimal form of nutrition is using today's sciences for the kids in our schools. But it's been fantastic. Everybody in the community has been willing to pitch in on this. I was able to get a meeting with the food purchasers for the school district. And, I kind of told them, listen, these are all the people who are interested in helping. And really, everybody in Las Vegas wants to see our kids get healthier and better food. So all of the resources of our city are at your disposal to help you achieve your mission. Tell us what you need. And, with that, they were like, you know what? Yeah, come on board, help us out. And they're going to open it up to letting the community help to provide the solution to the problems that they're trying to solve. So I think we're going to get a real shot at executing on this and improving nutrition in our schools. And I think, somebody who knows an awful lot about that, it's great to get a chance to talk to you about it. One of the other things we think is great is once we set the standard, we've got a nonprofit set up to sort of figure out what the standard is. And the goal of the nonprofit is to just sort of, if there's a food cart or a restaurant that wants to provide food in bulk, all they have to do is prove that they're meeting that standard. And then the school district or that local principal can choose to buy food from their facility. And it will create, hundreds of thousands of jobs in this city for people to provide foods to the schools because there's, just so many kids in so many schools that need it.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, we're really excited for it. And then if we succeed, those people will all be in demand, from the 49 other states that are going to want to copy what we do if we can prove that we did it right.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I think if you're putting protein, that is just the number one thing that's missing in most diets, in my opinion.
so now I'm going to ask the finance guy who knows how to spin this up into gigantic businesses that you can sell for $87 million. What do we need to do to execute on that to transform it into something that everybody in the country wants to participate in and make money on?
On the food side of things,
Yeah.
man, it's scale. So, sometimes it's not about profit. I think this one would have to be, obviously in a perfect world, you'd want it to be regenerative agriculture sourced, getting the top 1%, but that's probably not a reality at scale. It just isn't. So I think if you go to lower tier, let's say economy type chicken, beef, as long as it's quality in terms of what the protein is more important than actually where it's coming from, because it's just not even there at all right now.
I will tell you, we talked to the guys over at who make food for the Bellagio and the Wynn and the high end properties on the Strip, and we talked about the price model that the school district has, and they're like, we can do that all day long and turn a profit on that. And I was amazed to hear that, but I think maybe they buy in such scale and in such bulk, or they or as with many things, people in Las Vegas have really figured things out because the people here are incredibly bright and talented, right?
Yeah, I think distribution supply chain systems will probably make it more efficient, especially if you roll that out nationwide. Different hubs, frozen transport, because there's no waste involved. That's one of the biggest issues with food costs is just how much gets wasted.
All right.
On the fresh side of things.
Well, got it. So anyway, that's my soapbox talking about nutrition and trying to help our kids do better and reducing healthcare costs in the country. But I want to hear about if when I get up to Washington, I'm going to be faced with the opportunity to pass laws on a bunch of different bills, and not all of them can I be an expert on. I know an awful lot about healthcare and some about many other issues. But you're an expert in finance and business operations and with a particular knowledge on interest rates and its effect on the economy. What do we need to do in Washington that we can do that would juice the economy in the fastest way for the most people to get us back on track to helping solve this economic crisis in America?
Yeah, I think a great idea is, I believe Trump just came out with the idea of the portable mortgage.
Okay.
So this makes a whole lot of sense. Now your mortgage is not tied to the direct asset you own. It's tied to you as an individual. So right now the whole housing market is in a stalemate because anybody with a sub-4 interest rate is not going to sell their home. But if they could sell their home and take their interest rate with them to their next property, you could get that housing economy moving again. Realtors, mortgage.
And they won't sell their home because current interest rates are like 7-8%. And so there's no way for them there's no reason for them to leave their current lower payments to a much higher payment for probably a smaller house.
Yeah, there's a ton of people who are trapped in their homes because of the imbalance of interest rates. And if the debt service costs triple, I'm not doing it. So I like to see that portable mortgage because we do have the highest relative cost of housing ever. You've got asset values at an all-time high, and the cost of capital relative to the asset value is also the highest ever. So you have the most expensive housing market. At the same time, the debt for that is equally the most expensive. So that's why there's nobody really that's buying homes right now that's young.
So our argument on this is that one of the reasons that you see that happen is because of the unfair playing field in competition for residential housing units. So what's happened is you have individuals who pay an interest rate who 5 years ago the interest rate was 4% versus investment banks that had access to interest rates 0.5%.
Mhm.
And there's no way for the individuals to compete effectively against entities when they're getting a capital at such a low rate. And so, of course, they were able to go and buy up all the property because it cost them next to nothing, because they could manufacture loans, and expand the assets they had, utilizing derivatives to the sort of the fractional reserve banking type model, to where the actual cost of that capital is far, far, far less for these giant entities than it is for the people who actually need to utilize the homes. And so that is the reason for the elevated prices in the country, is because they could sort of more or less use the privilege of a bank to print money, to then use that money to buy up the assets in America.
Mhm.
And that's not just a problem with homes, but it's a problem in numerous industries too, wherein they buy the industry, then they load the industry up with debt, take the cash out, and then the formerly profitable company is now unable to run because they're loaded with so much debt that was primarily used just to give the investors a payoff who sort of raided the company for this purpose.
Yep.
So what kind of laws do we need to prevent that from happening? What kind of is it useful, do you think, to pass laws that would equilibrate this balance between the interest rates that gigantic banks have access to versus individuals? Is that enough to bring prices down in the housing market to where the economic markets can serve their original purpose, which is to provide the optimal selling point for buyers and sellers to optimize the transition of goods? Because what's happened now is instead of that purpose, when local buyers and local sellers get together to find the optimal price in their community, you have all the money in the world on top of it, magnified times 3, because they could expand the amount of money available to them with derivatives and loan contracts. All of that money now is put on top of the market, and distorts the values beyond the ability of anybody who doesn't have access to those interest rates to compete.
And they also have the most liquid capital of anyone, so they can grab the best assets at the lowest prices with cash. So yeah, it's a very unfair, unbalanced market. So I would love to see legislation around that.
All right. So that's good to know, because you're somebody who's quite educated in that field. If legislation like that came out, is it possible to do that and still lower interest rates for more regular investors, not the giant banks?
I think this is where the idea comes from of the 45-year mortgage. It's
Okay.
kind of what you've seen happen with auto loans over the years. They just
Uh-huh.
keep extending the term so that it really comes down to a monthly payment for the average person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
although trapping someone into 45 years of debt seems like a bad idea, if it gets someone their first home and their payment is like it was with a 3% interest rate at current rates, at least it's a way for people to get into the homeownership game. And I think when younger society feels, ostracized from opportunity, that's when you get big problems.
So one of the ways to address this is that when federal lands are released, so this is a thing that congressperson would have some effect over. When federal lands are released for development, you can create regulations or even zoning regulations or laws that certain sections of it have to be utilized for housing, for single-family residential units, and those can't be owned by gigantic hedge funds. They have to be owned by the people who live in them. And if you structure it in this way, you can perhaps in that way prevent, at least help solve the problem. And then another way that's been talked about is to raise local taxes on single family residential units to say 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times what they are now, but forgive that if the person who is paying that lives in the home. And this would sort of force out the gigantic corporations that have 3,000 homes.
I think that would work phenomenally because average person can't afford those taxes, but the corporations almost need it for the write-offs anyway. So it really wouldn't affect them, and it would solve the problem for the average person.
Oh, I think it would force the corporations to start to sell off their properties, the gigantic entities, because they're that new tax is what they would have to add on to the rents. The price of the rents would be above the market, and it would make sense for people to just buy a home to pay less than that new rental amount. And so there'd be a pressure to start to dump those homes to allow people to buy them and not allow for home ownership.
Yeah, and
And
it's an inventory, supply game, so that would definitely bring prices down too.
so it's an option. I mean, there are downsides to everything. And so the people who have equity in their homes, you'd have to write laws to protect that, particularly for seniors. But when I talked to the head of the Nevada Real Estate Association, she was in favor. She was like, yeah, absolutely. And I says, but even if this, pushes the price of homes down, is that okay for you guys? Because you guys are tuition based. She says, yeah, because it's going to increase the turnover of homes, and more sales is more better for us. So those were her words. I was like, all right.
So of all the things that you want to do in Washington, what's at the top of the list?
Healthcare. So the first, I want to fix the insurance markets. I'm incredibly frustrated with the amount of predation that those people and evil that those people visit upon our society. I kind of recognize, that means I'm just passing on what I want it's like to be my kid's problem. I'm going to leave it to them to solve, and I became very ashamed. And so I thought, that's unconscionable, and let me step up and do something about this. So this is something that needs to happen right now. We have President Trump in office. He's going to be there for another 2 years. Whoever comes in after him may not have enough strength to stand up to the insurance companies. They're incredibly powerful, incredibly wealthy institutions in this country. I think Donald Trump has the strength to do it, and I think we can make a tremendous amount of difference in the next 2 years on this issue. So while he's there, I wanted to run for office, get this done, and I think it's going to benefit everybody in America. I think we can restore maybe 10% of the gross domestic product back into the economy to be used usefully. I think the insurance companies have siphoned that money out of the the whole economy, and they're performing nothing useful with that task.
I think COVID opened a lot of eyes to the situation.
That's very true. That's very true. COVID was that definitely opened my eyes. I was so angry when I saw the government and all of the engines and media uh, uh, trying to condemn the use of ivermectin. So ivermectin in 2022, Nature, which is incredibly well-respected magazine, ran a long article in which they listed 20 different ways that ivermectin was effective against COVID. And it was the frontline therapy for numerous parasitic diseases. Every medical student, every doctor knows that to be true. And yet all of those people remained silent while the media was painting this picture that no, it's a medication indicated for horses. And the doctors who stood up to say, no, that's not true, were villainized, driven out of medicine. Some of them lost their license and their ability to practice. And I ask, where were the people at the NIH, the CDC, the FDA, and all of the halls of academia to stand up to say, no, these doctors are all right, and the people promoting this narrative are wrong. And I got to talk to, and I won't name him because he has not to be named, but an incredibly well-respected chairman of the Department of Immunology at one of the best colleges in our country, and he reviewed some stuff. We had found that another generic, so the hydroxychloroquine effective to a degree, ivermectin effective. We found another drug that was, we had a 68% reduction in mortality, 37% reduction in length of hospital stay for patients hospitalized here at Centennial Hills Hospital. 77 in the treated group, 44 in the non-treated group. It was a big study, and these are all patients sick enough to be on oxygen, fighting for their lives to not die. So 2 out of every 3 patients who might have died, we apparently didn't because they got this drug. And so numerous these generic drugs available that could have saved lives that were suppressed. When we sent that information to the head of the American Association of Immunology, they didn't respond. I sent it to every member of the American Association of Immunology individually. They didn't respond. It was their job to have known that hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin were effective. I mean, that's their field. They know this to be true. And they chose to not speak on that, remain silent. And that woman, Akiko Yamamoto, was the president of that organization. And last year, she won an award for a Lifetime Achievement Award at the American Association of Immunology. And I I was outraged because, in my opinion, that woman's responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans. I think I think it's shameful that these people are lauded and celebrated when they abdicated the responsibility that they had to the rest of America. Those people make their careers based on the grants that are given to them by the people of the by the U.S. government, by the NIH, by the people of the United States of America, and to not step up. They're our nation's experts on these issues. And when we have trouble, we go turn to them. And for them to turn their backs on us to make a profit or to maintain their position, to fail to advocate in the best interest of the people of our country is treason, or it's as close to treason as you can get in a civilian role. In terms of finance, lowering interest rates is the best thing we can do for the country, is what you were telling me, and maybe trying to find a way to put a cap on the ability of these gigantic banks to purchase so many assets at such a rate, some way to equilibrate those scales. And was there another issue that we need to tackle in Washington?
I think the food situation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Makes everybody healthier, lowers healthcare costs. Just absolutely great.
Yeah, we're big fans of RFK, and we're hoping to see him continue to do great things up there. And that's our show for today. Thanks for tuning in as the Dr. Nagy Show. I'm running for U.S. Congress for Nevada's 3rd Congressional District. We're going to make America better. This podcast is a campaign communication paid for by Nagy for Congress and authorized by me, Dr. Nagy. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the campaign or its affiliates. Discussions are intended for informational and conversational purposes only and do not constitute legal, financial, or professional advice. Any references to public policy matters reflect general positions and priorities at the time of the recording and are subject to change based on legislative process and voter input.